guys. We're counting down the days to Christmas, but we're also counting down the days because we're almost done with the book of Acts. I know that's exciting, and you kind of feel awkward, like, should I support that? Like, should I, be excited that we're almost done? Yes, you should. But we've been reading through the book of Acts for quite some time. We've been reading through the book of Acts as we've just planted this church to go and resemble the first century church. We wanted to resemble what they looked like, how they acted, how they interact with one another, how they loved each other. So we wanted to be just like them. We wanted to go and be the church. Go ahead and turn over to Acts 27. So me and Brittany, we're very complete opposites. Meaning the sides of brain that we think on, how we respond to situations. So you can imagine that's difficult when you're trying to find something to watch on TV. When you're trying to find something that you both enjoy, right? She wants drama and drama. That's pretty much it. I want action. I want humor. Not that she doesn't want humor, but I want the action kind of humor, like Marvel. She wants 50 First Dates or something like. And so when we're trying to find something to watch on TV, it is very difficult. But we finally found something. We found something that we both enjoy. And it's surviving. So it's when COVID hit, we were like, we're going to be in the house a lot. We need to find something that we can agree on. And luckily, there's 42 seasons of Survivor. So we started watching Survivor. And the whole concept is you need to survive. It's a social game where Brittany likes all the drama and the social aspect of it. Then there's the action. You have to compete in challenges. You have to compete against another team and then eventually against everybody. Why do I bring this up? There's a time in our lives, in the show and in even our lives, that we go into survival mode. We go into survival mode, and normally it's in peak times of stress. It's heavy stress. Things need to get done on time. There's limited time, so it's very overwhelming. And we go into survival mode. We go into this mode that I have split seconds to think. And I got to make a decision. And some of us thrive there. If you have procrastinated on an assignment, if you have procrastinated and didn't get the work done, and it's the night before that 20-page paper's due, you lock in. And you're it's not a typewriter, but you know what I mean. And it's kind of like this survival mode. And I think a lot of us think we thrive there. That, man, I lock in, I'm so super focused, I do great. And if it's every once in a while, you might be able to. But in the show Survivor, from day 1 to day 39, you're in survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, it takes a toll. Your mental health diminishes. The anxiety, the depression, the paranoia of am I doing this right? Oh my gosh. And that's in the game. But I think in our lives, we sometimes can operate in survival mode, where we operate under high stress that we put ourselves in. But sometimes I think we can think that it's God's doing, and we don't give us enough credit for those situations that we are in. Hopefully you guys are open to Acts 27. I'm so grateful for Chris and Kobe and John and Rich being able to preach the past couple weeks as we've been making our way through the book of Acts. It's been kind of crazy what Paul has been going through. He's on trial. He's in jail for 2 years. He's back on trial in front of King Agrippa. And then now, God has encouraged him to appeal to Caesar. So they hopped on a boat, and they're now on their way to Rome. They're on their way so he can stand trial before Caesar. In Acts 27, we're going to start in verse 9. They're already on the boat, and they're approaching Crete. Verse 9. Much time has been lost, and sailing had already become dangerous, because by now it was after the Day of Atonement. So Paul warned them, "Men, I can see that our voyage is going to be disastrous and bring great loss to the ship and cargo and to our own lives also." But the centurion, instead of listening to what Paul said, followed the advice of the pilot and the owner of the ship. Since the harbor was unsuitable to winter in, the majority decided that we should sail on, hoping to reach Phoenix and winter there. This was a harbor in Crete, facing both southwest and northwest. Verse 13. When a gentle south wind began to blow, they saw their opportunity. So they weighed anchor and sailed along the shore of Crete. Before very long, a wind of hurricane force, called the northeaster, swept down from the island. The ship was caught by the storm. It could not head into the wind. So we gave way to it and were driven along. As we passed to the lee of the small island called Cauda, we were hardly able to make the lifeboat secure. So the men hoisted it aboard. Then they passed ropes under the ship itself to hold it together, because they were afraid that they would run aground on the sandbar of Syrtis. They lowered the sea anchor and let the ship be driven along. We took such a violent battering from the storm that the next day they began to throw the cargo overboard. On the third day they threw the ship's tackle overboard with their own hands. When neither sun nor stars appeared for many days and the storm continued raging, we finally gave up all hope of being saved. After they had gone a long time without food, Paul stood up before them and said, "Men, you should have taken my advice not to sail from Crete. Then you had been spared yourself this damage and loss. But now I urge you to keep up your courage, because not one of you will be lost. Only the ship will be destroyed. Last night an angel of the God of whom I belong and whom I serve stood beside me and said, 'Do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar, and God has graciously given you the lives of all who sail with you. So keep up your courage, men, for I have faith in God that it will happen just as he told me. Nevertheless, we must run aground on some island.'" We'll stop there. Survival mode. You can kind of see the map up here. This is kind of where we've been at for Acts 27 and going into 28. At the bottom right, we're leaving Judea and we're going up around Cyprus. And then if you look at dead center, this is where we are. We are coming around the south part of Crete. And they leave the island southwest, and then a north wind crushes them. I mean, it batters them. You'll see as we keep reading next week, they'll end up in Malta, which is where they'll run ground and be stranded on that island. But this is survival mode. What I want to do is I want to put you in this story. You're a crewmate. You are someone on that ship. just a hired hand probably, trying to get the materials that you're probably going to Rome to sell. You're a merchant. You're probably going there to sell either grain or a cloth, or you're on that ship. And you hear this prisoner stand up and say, hey, we need to stop. We need to stay here. It's almost winter. It's not almost winter. It is winter. This is dangerous. We need to stay here, dock here, and not go any further. Then you see the captain or the pilot just dismiss, right? Like, we're going to do this anyway. We're going to set sail. We're going to keep going. We're going to try to get to Italy. We're trying to get to Rome. They're coming across the south of Crete. They're sailing, and it's just a gentle breeze. And then all of a sudden, the winds change. It's no longer gentle and going south. Now it's hard, hurricane force, and coming right at you in the north. You are now getting battered by this storm. You are now on the precipice of being sunk at sea. They say they took rope or cords and started going underneath the ship so that the boat doesn't fall apart. Like, that's the point that they are at right now. Their ship is shaking and battered and about to be sunk. They're in survival mode. All right, secure the load, secure everything. That's not working. What's next? Well, throw everything overboard. We're going to make some sacrifices, and it's starting with the lifeboat. It's going to go to the food. It's going to go to everything that we're about to sell in Rome. Like, everything's got to go. We need to lighten our load so that we're not as displaced into the water, but we can kind of ride on top. No, we're survival mode. I don't care that we're losing money. I don't care that the ship is about to break apart. Whatever I need to do to survive. We're in survival mode. The idea of throwing the stuff overboard, it's called jettison. Meaning you're kind of getting rid of the small stuff that small sacrifices. And all that is to start stabilizing the ship. Start stabilizing the ship so when the waves do hit it or the wind does come, it's not as kind of like a pendulum. It doesn't rock as hard. This is a rough ride. They are going through it. I imagine you're on this ship. They've tossed everything. The next step is to start tossing people. Right? Look at Jonah when they were in the storm. Hey, you're next. You gotta go. Imagine you're sitting there on this ship, like, when am I going? When am I getting tossed? Imagine you're sitting there, stewing all your thoughts. Maybe you do believe, maybe you're Jewish. Maybe you do believe in God. Your immediate thought is probably, why am I here, God? Why am I going through this, God? Why did you allow me to be on this ship and all this stuff to happen? Why, God? Why? I thought you loved me. How could you do this to me? Have you ever felt that? Been in such a low place where you start questioning the goodness of God? Where you start questioning, does he really have what's best for me? Does he care about my interests? Have you ever been to that point? Have you ever been low where you start questioning the goodness of God? I said it at first. I don't think we give ourselves enough credit. Meaning, we're so quick in our low moments to start blaming God. We're so quick to be like, why, God? Why did you let this happen? When it was our decisions that led us there. It was our choices that brought us this low place. God's just a scapegoat. It's your decisions a lot of times that lead us to these low, deep, dark valleys. I don't think we give ourselves enough credit. Hitting rock bottom and wondering how could God do this to you, I think you got to take a sober look and what are the decisions that I've made? What are the things that I've done that have led me here? Who have I not listened to? If you think about this story, Paul said to the pilot and the ships, hey, it's not a good idea. And maybe you're thinking like, who's Paul? He's a prisoner. Like, why would I listen to him? Well, he's got pretty good experience. If you look in it's 2 Corinthians 2:9, I think it is, Paul says that he's been shipwrecked 3 times. He knows the Mediterranean Sea pretty well. It says that he stayed on a part of the boat for 24 hours. Meaning he was on the sea for 24 hours. I don't think he wants to go back there. Paul has experience with being on the sea during the winter. He can give advice from a point of experience. Guys, stop. This is not a good idea. I've been down that road. I've been in the water. You're not going to like it. You're not going to want it. And you can kind of see Paul's frustration and how he talks to the people after all this stuff starts happening. He's like, told you so, right? I think we would all be at that point. I think most of us, if you warned someone to do something, not to do something, and they went ahead and did it, and then it turned out just how you thought it was going to turn out, I told you so. I told you it's not new to me. I've been shipwrecked 3 times in the sea. I told you to stay there. But I think when we don't listen to people in our lives, or the voice of God through the scriptures, through mentors, when we don't take a heed to the warnings, we get put into survival mode. We start chucking whatever is close to us, trying to avoid any type of discomfort and to continue to have some sort of happiness. We get super hyper-focused and neglect or turn a deaf ear to wisdom or to input. Or maybe you don't want input at all. Like, I'd rather just not hear what you got to say. I want to do what I want to do. When things start going south, we go into survival mode. How can I protect my happiness? What do I need to jettison? The things or the people to get the way that I want to have happen. Church, to think that you're going to remain steadfast and never go through struggles or challenges or doubts is unrealistic. You're going to hit rock bottom. If not, you have already done it, you will do it. And it's not going to be because God has it out for you. It's not because God is choosing this hard path for you. It's probably going to be because you started turning a deaf ear to what God is trying to say. Life is a wave of ups and downs. We all fall short of the glory of God. That's biblical. But we can limit the amplitude of the wave. We can limit how far we fall before we start thinking, oh, I'm going downhill right now. Maybe I need to course correct. Maybe I need to change. Maybe I need to pursue godliness over self-interest. That survival mode will kill you. If Paul didn't get the vision, if Paul didn't have God intervene, most of these people will probably die on the sea. Survival mode will eventually kill you. Church, as most of you guys know, I can be very self-reliant. I can be very, I don't need help. I don't want help. It'll be faster if I just do it myself. I can be very self-reliant. And as most of you guys know, I always am working. In my mind, even this whole time off for the baby has been working. In my mind, planning out, what are we gonna do next year? So I can become, even when I need to break, even when God tells me to rest, I easily fall back into this self-satisfying, self-reliant nature. If I don't do it, no one's gonna do it. I can't delegate. I can't delegate, because what happens if it falls through? I need to do it. It's gotta be me. And that's my survival mode. I'm I go. And frankly, it hurts me mentally, physically. I get so stressed out. So stressed out with all the stuff that I'm thinking about, that I'm doing. And it's because I won't just turn it over to God. I won't just allow God's plan to go. But I want my efforts to mean something. I'm not good at asking for help. I'm not good at calling someone hey, can you take care of this for me? I become very self-reliant. And to be honest, this survival mode will kill me. And I think that's why this is so scary to me. Reading this passage, looking at the people on the ship, and they're going. This is where we're going. This is where we're going. I love how it says that they started throwing stuff over with their hands. So now it's not you can't just use a crane to drop the boat. No, we're going to become even more self-reliant in this survival mode. We're all hands on deck, throw everything over. I think I can relate so much with these crewmen. High stress, doing whatever I need to do to get it done. Jettison anything, sacrificing anything that's going to stop me from achieving what I have as my goal. Whether that's family time, whether that's spending time with my girls, whether that's my own personal relationship with God. My agenda can easily become more important than my connection to God. I can get isolated from friends, and then I question everything. You know what? Does God really have what's best for me? I'm so stressed out. Why has God allowed me to get to this point? No, Cody. You're so stressed out because you won't be dependent on God. You won't reach out for help. Your arrogance is killing you. That's why you're stressed. That's why you're overwhelmed. It's not because you don't have help, Cody. It's because you won't ever accept it. Church, it's ironic because you can't live in survival mode, but we all think that's where we thrive. The procrastination, that, I thrive under high stress environment. Eventually that's going to kill us. Eventually, just like the boat, will fall apart. In what area of your life are you living in survival mode? What area are you living in survival mode? Not letting go. not giving things over to God, not asking or seeking help, but trying to conquer it on your own. Maybe it's grief. Maybe it's school. Maybe it's your purity. You're wanting and grasping and desiring control. Maybe it's just pleasure in general. What way are we living in survival mode? When you stop living in survival mode, when you release it, when you give it to God, when you accept help from God's people, then you can thrive. Then you can see God's glory through almost everything. Paul stands back up. After all this stuff happens, he stands back up and says, I've had a vision from God. The boat's going to be destroyed, but you're going to be saved. When God intervenes, when God steps in, you can respond and give it to him, and we'll be saved. By letting go and trusting God and his plan and not your own. The stress is relieved. He protects, he conquers, he directs, he makes holy, he unifies, he loves, he saves, he shows compassion, he changes hearts, he heals, he mends, he fixes, he gives grace, he gives mercy, he sacrifices, he sets the example, he is the way, the truth, the life. He is the light in the darkness, he calms the storm. That is the God who we serve. That is the God who we worship. When we choose to be in survival mode, we take all of God's accolades and be like, that's cool, but I can handle it myself. I want our church to thrive. I want you to thrive. And the only way that's going to happen is when we give things over to God. When we no longer allow self-interest to be above God's will or God's plan. God is the ultimate cheat code. With a simple relinquishing control and devout obedience to God, we take that from survival mode into refreshing and much more joyful, thriving mode. I think as we think about communion and we think about what God did for us, what he sacrificed so that we could thrive, so that we could have this amazing God and give things over to him and not have to deal with it on our own. As we take communion, I do want us to think through and a sober look at what areas of our lives are we in survival mode. And how can you give those things over to God? How can you give those things to him and allow him to grant refreshing, to grant peace? As we take communion, I want us to really hold on to that. I'm going to pray for communion. We're going to take communion. And then we're going to have the singers come up. And we'll sing the song. Please pray with me. Dear Heavenly Father, God, I love you. God, I think about my life and I think about my struggles. I think about my lack of dependence. God, my self-reliance or my arrogance. God, and I think about who you are and how desiring you want to take those things from me. How you want a relationship where it is a give and take, God. That I can give you my woes and you can give me peace. I can give you my hardships and you can give me rest. God, I pray that as we take a sober look, as we take the bread and the juice and we reflect on what you sacrificed, what you ultimately gave us, I pray that as we take the communion, we can remember that sacrifice. Remember that there was nothing that you are not willing to do to keep us close to you. And I pray that we can take a sober time this afternoon and really reflect on all that you've done for us. I love you, God. I saw in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.